I appreciate y'all coming out today, and the weather's held out for us. So this is good. This is our 4th session of the town halls out of the 5. So we're thankful that those in-house here joined us and those out there in virtual land have joined us. In just a minute, I'm going to introduce this lovely lady up here that's kind of made all this possible, not her herself, but her department. Yeah. They approached us at the Arc of Alabama to, parents needed educated on the new home and community-based services rules. And I said, we'll be glad to do it. And so they allowed us to do it. And that's why we've been going around. And that's some of the topics that you'll hear about today. The home and community-based services, self-direction, self-determination. You'll hear about in-home supports and other things. And so I hope you get a lot out of it, just like you wanted to when you showed up. So thank you for showing up. The way we do things is we present the material. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, because we want the people out in virtual land to hear your question, because they'll hear you talking and answering something like, well, what's she answering? So make sure, so we'll bring the mic to you. Okay. Just a few housekeeping rules. There's snacks and drinks over there. Help yourself anytime. Just feel like get up, even when we're talking, just get up and go over there. And if you have to use the facilities, it's right out that brown door straight ahead of you. Okay. So, we appreciate Clifton filling in for Alex at the Alabama Care, bringing this video production open. And now I want to introduce Zena May. She's over the advocacy and education department here, and she's going to tell you a little bit what they do and why we're here.
Thank you so much, Tim. I'm the chairperson for the DD Division Education and Advocacy program. And what we do is to try to make sure that we are educating all the families about the services that are provided through the DD Division, as well as the HCBS services. So that is one of our biggest charges that we've had this year for the past couple of years, as a matter of fact. So we're so grateful that the Arc of Alabama has been going around doing town hall meetings, meeting with families, educating them about the program and about all the rules and what needs to be done out there to make sure that this program is a success. We're meeting here at the Region 4 office here. And at this building here, the staff here helps coordinate services for the people that are receiving them. They work with the support coordinators throughout the state and putting the services together. They do monitorings. They do investigations on abuse and neglect cases. So they're very helpful in providing information to them. My name is Zena, and I work for the Internal Rights Protection and Advocacy Program. And what we do is monitoring. We handle complaints and we conduct investigations. We do a lot of interaction with the individuals receiving services and to make sure that their rights are being protected. So that is really much we do. So we got a big agenda for you today. And I want to say thanks again to the Arc of Alabama. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Tim.
Thank y'all very much. And before we get started with the actual program, another thing that the Arc of Alabama, along with the ASARC and so many other sponsors, ADAP's one of them, we're having next month, the Alabama Disability Conference here in Montgomery, and it's at the Embassy Suites down toward, I might not want to say that region down there, but with what happened last week, we might not want to go down there, but, and here's the website, the links up, is just alabamadisabilityconference.org. Go in, fill out, just click on buttons, registration information's right there. You click on that, get your tickets. If you need a hotel reservation, hopefully y'all here in Montgomery can drive from home. But that's all there too. And there's a lot of good topics that are coming up this of interest to you. You'll leave there with a wealth of knowledge. So we hope y'all attend and be a part of it. If you have any more questions about that, just, you can reach out to the Arc of Alabama and let us know. Now to move on to our day's program. They say behind every good man, there's a woman. Took us a while to find that person, but we settled for Kim anyway. So, but Kim's done an excellent job on this, and I joke with her and kid with her. She has really put this together very well, and we're pleased to have her at the Ark of Alabama. So without further ado, it's Kim Spangler.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I on? Can you hear me good? Okay. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time. We've got a lot to cover today. We're going to make it as short and sweet and painless as possible, I promise. To be fair to our online audience, if y'all have comments, questions you'd like to type into the chat, Clifton will read those out loud at the end. So I promise we might not see you, but we hear you. All right. So at the end of this, we'll try to answer all the questions we possibly can. So like they said, if you grabbed an agenda, you'll kind of see we've got a lot of topics to cover. We're going to start out with remote supports. And we've got Melissa Walters here with Safe and Home to kind of go over that with us. And as soon as she's done, we're going to cover the HCBS standards and give you some updates there. And we are pleased and happy that we have Mr. James Tucker, who I may or may not put on the spot for HCBS supports, because he knows just as much, if not way more than I do, and he can answer questions fairly easily. And then we've got self-directed services, and we've also got somebody here from ADMH that is one of our liaisons for self-directed service. So I may be directing some questions your way. Y'all didn't know you were going to get put on the spot like this, but that's what happens when you attend a town hall meeting, right? Everything's up for grabs. And then we've got some information on the community waiver program, guardianship reform, supported decision-making, and all of the above and anything in between. So happy to get started. Can't wait to see what we can get from each other out of this. Basically, lived experiences trump all. So we want to hear from you. All right, Miss Melissa Walters, if you'll go ahead and get us started with remote supports. Thank you, ma'am. Do you have them? Okay. Did y'all get one of these?
Hey, my name is Melissa Walters. I work for a company called Safe and Home. So what Safe and Home is doing now, we are new to the state of Alabama, which so is remote supports. Remote supports itself is just a new added feature, is what I like to say, to the waiver and to help individuals to become more independent. Independent looks different for every individual. There is not a cookie cutter standard for remote supports or for each individual. Everything is individualized, as in, some people, they want help taking their medications. They want to be able to take their medications how they want to take them. They want to take them when they want to take them, in a supported and safe environment. And that's where we can step in. So I've already given the example of medication, but it can be anything from, if you have an individual that's eloping, you have an individual that needs seizure mitigation, just different aspects of any individual's life, we can come in and we can help. We use sensor-based technology. So a lot of our stuff runs passively in the background. When it's running passively in the background, you don't actually have to touch it. You don't actually have to do anything. So you don't have to be super tech savvy. I promise you, I'm the least tech savvy person on this planet, and I seem to do just fine. So with that, we have different sensors, we have different things, and everything is like a layered approach. So it's not just, okay, well, you have remote supports and that's what you get. It can complement any existing service that an individual has. So maybe they are meeting some of their goals, but they need to meet other goals, or their goals change. Remote supports is great because it's very fluid. It's not something that's set in stone, and it can be changed. It can be customized. It can be added to, subtracted, anything of that nature. So remote supports is a service. It's not a thing. We're not just this big tech company that's come into the state of Alabama. We offer remote supports, and we utilize that through assistive technology. We have over 60 different pieces of technology. So with that technology, it links you to our remote support staff. Our individuals are able to build a relationship with our remote support centers. We have 2 remote support centers. One's in California and one's in Arizona. They're open 365 days a year. They're always open and they're always available to help and assist and promote independence and help inspire someone to be independent. So I've listed a couple of different options, the medication management, seizure management, elopement. Fall risk is another big one that we can assist with. And fall risk, you can actually do these really cool motion sensors, and we can do stuck alerts. And that way it's not intrusive and it's not invasive in someone's home. It's still allowing them to be independent, but it still can give them that extra layer of support in case there was an emergency or in case they did feel unsafe. Another good option would be, someone who they're just not getting along with the DSP. Or, I hate to even bring up the whole DSP thing because everybody's in a crisis right now, trying to find staff and trying to be able to help somebody and that kind of thing. And that's where remote supports really can step in. It can be something as simple as just overnight supports where you don't have to have somebody sleeping on your couch or sitting on your couch at night while you sleep. We can do a couple sensors, do a daily check-in call, make sure that individual is getting up in the morning. We can also monitor some things outside to make sure that they're not having any issues with visitor safety. Montgomery is notorious right now for not being the safest. I think everybody has seen what happened last weekend, but we can also help with visitor safety, making sure that that person's making good choices on allowing someone to come in their home. My biggest thing is whenever I do a consult, I always ask, do you mind if I come in? Of course they've invited me, but have they really invited me in their home? So I always try to take a step back and think about whenever I'm meeting an individual, okay, let me ask them what they think. Let me see what they want. And that's what I really push and advocate for, is what that individual wants. So with remote supports, it is person-centered. It's exactly what the individual wants and how they need it. What happens is we come out, it'll be myself in this area, in this region. I'll come out, I'll do a consult, we'll sit down, we'll talk about goals. We'll talk about what you're doing, what services you like right now, what services you don't like. What can I help you achieve? What can I help build that bridge to gap what you need and what you're getting? Then I come back, I do a proposal. I'll meet with your support coordinator, or if it's privately funded, however it is being funded, we'll get a plan together and then we'll go from there. We'll look at, any kind of budget restraints or anything of that nature after we talk about goals, and we kind of really figure out what you need to help support you. After that, then it's very simple. We get the approval, we install, and you go live. And then we just keep in touch with you. I'll keep in touch with you because I will still build a relationship just like everyone else. But it's really just the biggest takeaway today is it's a service. It's not a thing. It's how you want it, when you want it, and we make it available. Any questions?
Would look like in a person-centered plan, how it would read?
Sure. So in a person-centered plan, I can think of one individual who gets on-demand service. So what that means is that individual opted in to get one daily check-in call at like 8 o'clock in the morning, just to make sure that she is up in the day, getting her morning going, all of that. But she has access to press the button and talk to us anytime. So that is why it is on-demand service. We don't actually have sensors in the home. She has a tablet and a geocom. So there's no sensors or anything for us to technically monitor. So that's why it's on demand. So what that looks like in her plan of care is she has a tablet designed to help support her whenever she needs to speak to someone by touch of the button support, is exactly what the plan of care reads. And not only does it say that, but it also says that her geocom that she has, which is another one of our devices, will assist her when she needs to speak to someone in the community to keep her safe. So that's actually what the plan of care says. That's a good question. I haven't gotten that one yet. Everything, of course, is person-centered. Obviously, the goals will be written, and the plan of care my proposal will support the goals in the plan of care. So all of my proposals will actually have the language written in them to where it makes your support coordinator's jobs just a little bit easier. And it'll actually describe the equipment, it'll describe what the service is, and it will describe how the individual is going to use it and benefit from it. Yes. Any other questions? All right, we are quiet today. Thank you so much. If y'all have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Melissa. So I think we're good. I think that remote supports are becoming so popular because two reasons: technology has increased. There's so much more we can do with technology now that we couldn't do 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but now we can. The other reason is because of the national DSP care crisis that we're in. It is very difficult to find enough people who care enough, who want to come in and do this work, especially when something like COVID happens. That's when we saw this mass exodus of care workers, and it's been difficult to get everybody back. So when you have the technology that can step in and provide the support that somebody would have been, a person would have been providing before, and the person who needs that support understands how to use that technology, it's a win-win. It gives them much more independence than they would have had otherwise, and it takes some of the burden off of the hiring that all of these providers are trying to do at such a desperate pace. So thank you for sharing all of that. And Melissa's got her cards here somewhere. Okay, so before you leave, grab one of Melissa's cards and we will post them on the Facebook page and Zoom link as well. All right, so home and community-based standards. When you hear HCBS, that stands for home and community-based settings. That is the new standard all across the board. So if you're going to have a person-centered plan, if you're going to have someone receiving services, they must comply with the new home and community-based settings. What does that mean? To me, in a nutshell, that's a fancy term for being integrated into the community and not being isolated in a form that is like the traditional or more institutionalized settings where there's no access to the community and its resources. All right, so you have your home, you have the independence in the home within the community, but you've also got those community resources in that same setting that are vital toward independence. So that's what it means to me. I'm going to give you some handouts. We've got several here. Thank you. You got it. You're on the ball. And so Tim's walking around with what we got from ADAP, and ADAP was gracious enough to put these together. The reason I like to use this is because it takes did I surprise you? It takes every waiver and it gives you a compare and contrast for HCBS so that you can look at each waiver and see what that means within the waiver itself. So you'll see across the chart, the E&D waiver, the elderly and disabled waiver. You'll see the CW, the community waiver program on the back. I'll try not to use abbreviations. If I do and you don't know, raise your hand. Sometimes I skip right over it. But all of the waivers are listed. So you can look down each row, each column with whatever waiver is important to you and understand, here's what HCBS means to my person who's using this waiver. And I love that resource because it's plain language, easy to understand, and it's a really good compare and contrast. So hang on to that. I'm going to also pass out the settings rule at a glance. And this is something that we got from our partners in policymaking program, and Mr. Alan Bergman gave this to us. You want several? And I like this one because it's very also easy to understand, easy to read, and it's just kind of the settings rule at a glance. So it says, the purposes of the settings rule have been promoted by the Administration on Community Living, ACL, during the growth of the pandemic recently, and they were summarized on the ACL webinar by David Hoff. I highly encourage you to go to the ACL website and look at this information because it goes into much more detail there. So the design for individualized supports and services also will assure compliance with Title II of the ADA, which is the most integrated setting as defined by the U.S. Supreme Court way back when for LC and EW versus Olmstead. We all remember that precedent. So that's where this is all coming from. I think we've got a long way to go, but we have definitely come so far since then. So that means stronger integration and inclusion within the community for people receiving services. So the person-centered plans should reflect the following 7 items. More typical and natural approaches to how we live. So in other words, for myself, if I wake up in the morning and decide, today I'm going to church and this is the church I want to go to, it should not be any different for the people we serve. They should wake up in the morning and be able to decide, today I want to go to church. This is the church I want to go to. And whatever that means for them, whether it means the provider is finding the transportation, finding the staff, whatever that means, that's where this is going. Home and community-based settings is a rule set in place to be able to provide the resources within a community that you and I both have access to every day for anybody else who might be receiving services with support. All right. So leveraging in the existing of community resources rather than creating special programming. Does that make sense for everybody? So in other words, another way to put that would be, if I wanted to go bowling, I'm going to go to the bowling alley, the local bowling alley. What I'm not, and I'm going to invite my friends, whoever those friends are. Probably won't be going by myself, right? Unless I'm on a league. But what I'm not going to do is shut that bowling alley down and have a special day for just people who happen to be receiving services, and that's the only people who are there. Because then what happens? There's no community integration, right? So access to these opportunities within the community in the same way, the same time that we have is the goal here. Reducing facility costs. When you don't have to have a brick and mortar place to go to, it's much more effective, cost effective. When you can take those same resources and pour them into the community, then it's a win-win, not just for the people that are using those resources in the community, but for the community itself. So it's making sense to be able to provide these resources that way instead of pouring them all into one place that's much more isolated, like a brick and mortar facility. Reducing the cost of transportation so that we are not reliant upon each provider having to have 50 buses, understanding that there are community access to transportation. Y'all know we have Uber. That's a win-win. Now there are programs within Uber. There's all kinds of different ways to access transportation that can reduce these costs, and that all needs to be factored in. More efficient and effective use of staff, just like we were talking about with the remote supports. And it's just overall a better way to live, because those lived experiences and those risks that are provided, that you give someone the dignity of risk, they learn and they grow and they make very valuable social connections when they are able to go out into the community when they want to, how they want to, where they want to, and practice in their faith or learn about their hobbies and excel that way. So that's the why. Here's the core values. The goal-oriented activities have a deliberate purpose. So you're not just going bowling, you're going bowling to create those social connections within the community. Yes, you're bowling, but there's a whole team of people and they invited you from their church. And so now you're excited to get to meet with them every Sunday for that bowling group. And it's not just people with disabilities, it's people that you would see regularly outside of that group home. So their flexible supports are customized to each individual need. I think that's incredibly important. It's the research shows it's much better for someone to do something they want to do rather than be forced into an activity because everybody else is doing it. You're going to get a lot better outcome when it's something that's individualized to their own interests. We all knew that in school, right? Growing up, there were some subjects we were good at and we would invest our time and do the homework with, and there were others we would avoid because we didn't like it and we didn't get such good grades. That's just life. So we know when we provide those individualized opportunities and they're catered to those kind of interests, that there's going to be a better outcome. Participation in activities with other community members without disabilities that are fully inclusive. That's the same way you and I live. It's not any different than how we live. The maximum participation in all typical community non-disability specific activities. So not just a little bit, but the maximum. So de minimis was a precedent set 2018, I believe, out of Georgia, and it still applies here with HCBS. You have to look for the most impact. You can't just get by with the least anymore. You're supposed to be looking for the most, getting the most value and the most time and the most effort out of something. So that is HCBS. I've got one more handout for everybody on that. Any questions on why this is happening and where we're going with it? Thank you, sir. This is another handout from ADMH. Are there any questions online yet?
No.
We're good?
I do have a question about this.
Okay.
This is about the individual disabilities waiver. About the individual disabilities waivers. I know that Byron White is over the community waiver program.
CWP.
Are
Mhm.
they going to replace the ID waiver with that and phase it out?
No, ma'am. So did everybody hear her question online? So no, what we're doing right now is filling waiver slots that would not be appropriate for that slot. That's not necessarily the goal. That rumor is out there though. So thank you for asking that question. What we want to see, and I'll go into that in a minute with the community waiver program, is for as many people to get on the community waiver program as possible, because that serves a particular people group with particular support needs. And so we're doing our best to work through, and I say we, it's all of us. It's families, it's providers, it's ADMH, it's CMS. It's all of us working toward getting those waiver slots filled best we can, because that's going to reduce our waiting list in a really good way. When we come back to ID in the later future, I don't want to say near future because we don't know. We don't know when that's going to be. But when we come back to ID in the later future, it will probably look different than it does now. But that's neither here nor there because we're in it right now for the long haul. So, and you're talking about just the ID waiver, right?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions on that? Any more comments? All right, now's your chance. We got to speak now or forever hold our peace. Self-directed is up next. So I'm going to pass these out, and these are from the ARC on self-directed services. So self-directed services can be applied to any of the waivers that your son or daughter or loved one may be on. But it's basically a way to increase self-determination. It's a way for the family member and the family unit itself to decide how they want to use the services and designate a person to provide those services. They come to the home, in most cases, the home where you live, but there's other ways to do it as well. What I would like for my son, and this is just my son, so I'm not talking about anybody but my son right now. What I would like to see for my son is a way to use self-directed services alongside the community waiver program with remote supports in the future, because that gives him a threefold or a three-prong method of support. That gives him paid support, that gives him remote support, which is in a way paid support, but it's remote, it's using technology. And if you're going to do well in the future, I think you're going to have to know how to use technology to some degree right? And then the community waiver program keeps it all within the community itself, and he doesn't have to necessarily leave his community to have those supports and receive those services. So to me, that would be ideal. That doesn't necessarily mean that's ideal for everybody. And that's what's beautiful about self-directed services, because it applies to each waiver in different ways. And so it presents options. It's like taking the door and opening it for whatever service or support you need, and you get to direct it as the person receiving those supports. And I think that's a really good option to have. Take those home with you, read over them. Please call ARC of Alabama if you have any questions about self-directed services. I want to take a minute, since we have our self-directed liaison here, and ask you, with everything I just said and with everything I just passed out, what would you add to it? I know I just was very brief, so. Is that a good summation, or do you think there's something else that I might be? Okay.
Involve your support coordinator, involve your person.
Right. Yeah, oh, that's for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Involve your support coordinator agency in your counties. And it also involves the person-centered plan.
Right. So even though you're directing these services yourself, even though you're having someone that you choose to come in to provide those services, it's still all being run through your support coordinator, and you've still got that person-centered plan to work with. One trick, where did those really long legal sheets go? One trick that I found very helpful through our partners in policymaking training was a good way to make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's for HCBS, whether it's self-directed or whatever waiver it is to go down this list and make sure everything mentioned in your waiver on this list is somewhere, somehow mentioned, maybe even using some of the same language in your person-centered plan. That should get everything covered. And feel free to take these to your support coordinators too. This is a very good overall bird's eye view of what it could look like. So that is self-directed services. Questions online? Not yet. All right. I'm going to keep going. So thank you. All right. Community waiver program. This is Alabama's newest waiver. And the community waiver program started out originally with about 500 slots. Oh, I forget I'm on camera. I'll slow down. 500 slots. And today, the last number I heard, which was about a week ago? 2 days ago, 323 slots are currently filled. We're working our way to 500. Those 323 are out of the following 11 counties. They're listed at the bottom of this handout. Those counties include Baldwin, Elmore, Houston, Jefferson, Limestone, Madison, Mobile, Montgomery, Morgan, Tuscaloosa, and Walker counties. That's the counties that we have set up to be eligible people to receive services through the community waiver program who live in those counties right now. We will be expanding those counties probably within the next couple years. We're still trying to fill the 500 slots before we do. So if you live in one of those counties, the community waiver program is available to you. And this is what the community waiver program will do. There are 5 different enrollment groups. All right. So these are those enrollment groups, and this is who we're trying, the people on the waiting list that they're trying to capture and provide supports for are the following: children with ID, intellectual disabilities, that are ages 3 to 13, who live with their family and other natural supports. Or the next one would be transition aged youth. That's children ages 14 through 21 who live with family or other natural supports. or 18 through 21 who live independently. All right, so that's its own people group. And then working age or older adults with intellectual disabilities, ages 22 and up. So if they live with family or other natural supports or live independently, they could also qualify for the community waiver program. Individuals with intellectual disabilities, age 3 and up, who are unable to live with family or other natural supports or independently. So that is its own group as well. 3 and up who are unable to live with family or independently. Individuals with intellectual disabilities who are unable to live with family other than natural supports, 3 and up. Just read that. Individuals with intellectual disabilities, 22 and up, who have, and this is important, this is key, who have a minimum of 1 substantial functional limitation. So it doesn't mean that they have to have an intellectual disability that is going to force them to need support, lifelong supports. It means that they might just have 1 functional limitation. For example, I need help budgeting my money. That is it. They would qualify for the community waiver program, or I need help with transportation. That's it. If that's their only functional limitation, then they would qualify for the community waiver program. Does that make sense? All right, and that's the groups, and this kind of summarizes it up top. So we hope that this will help us get to the point where we're providing services for people that may have fallen through the cracks in the past and or could be receiving services like remote supports or other services like transportation that we could not have done before that we can do now. So we're excited about the progress on that. Any more questions? I think we covered community waiver program. If you feel like I'm missing something, just speak up. Remind me, it gets to be a lot. Okay, last but not least, we're going to go over guardianship reform. Yay, James is here, Mr. Tucker from ADAP. So the expert in the room on guardianship reform would by far be Mr. Tucker with ADAP. And so the reason guardianship reform has become such a big deal now is because that we're seeing that with something called, thank you, supported decision-making, it's not necessary like we believed it was for someone to have a guardian in the past. We now understand, we now see evidence of the fact that people who get support don't always need a guardian. Sometimes they do, but it's not nearly as often as we used to think it was. Is that a fair statement? All right, so what we're doing, the state of Alabama, along with many other states, 32 that I know of, are actively involved with reforming the guardianship system to the point where the goal is that should anybody actually need a guardian, full-term guardian, then their rights are still intact. We're not necessarily removing their rights from them. But the overall goal is to help people function in a way where they get this kind of support they need to make those decisions on their own through different means. And they don't necessarily need someone making those decisions for them once we use plain language, which is recognized through the ADA. Once we use remote supports, we're seeing that people with intellectual disabilities are not nearly as incapable as maybe we once believed, but that they're actually more capable than we have given them credit for in the past. And so along with that is supported decision-making. The Colby Act was passed. We did it. That was a huge advocacy effort. That's what Tim just passed around, became official August 1st. And we will have our first team agreement signing that I know of. There may be another one that makes it to the finish line before we do, but the first one I know of will be August 28th. And so we're excited about that. The way those work is that you have an agreement with a team of supporters around one person that say, yes, I agree to support this person in this way. I will not overstep my bounds and make decisions for them. But when they need help in this role, I will help them. And then they just sign it, it gets notarized, and that is their alternative to a guardianship. So there's lots of different ways to create one of those teams. It's all natural supports. In fact, it's not even going to be a legal team agreement if it is a paid support. You can't do it that way. It has to be a natural support. And so we're excited about the promise of the future for people with intellectual disabilities, especially, or elderly, but disabled, that are going to be able to speak for themselves and make their own choices this way. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What assistance is available for making the plan?
So we have, can you say that again?
What assistance is available for a plan under the Colby Act right now for parents who are interested in doing this?
So are you asking about the team agreement, how you would create a team agreement?
Have your team.
Right.
And then the next step, is there some sort of advocate or specialist?
Well, we have one in the room right now with us, Mr. Tucker. I have over here, I always bring this with me wherever I go, just because I'm so proud of it. But this is how we created my son's team. This is the binder on Colby's team. And all the instructions are in here, and I'm happy to go over it with you at the end of the meeting. We don't have anything set up in our state that is officially yet. Let me be the first to raise my hand. When we get there, I will gladly volunteer to do that. We don't have anything officially set up yet that is a end-all be-all center for a place for people to go to get this kind of assistance. But I will tell you, it's not hard. You can go online. You can look up supporteddecisionmaking.org. I've got a list of those resources for you right here. I'm about to pass around. And there are all kinds of examples of the way people are using the teams, templates to make team agreements with, the life course tools. That's a huge resource for people that want to use supported decision-making. They've got their own, you open up the menu on the Life Course Tools webpage, it'll say Life Course Nexus, and you scroll down to where it says supported decision-making. They've got several examples of team agreements. I can show you the team agreement we're going to be using. There's a lot of different ways to do it. What I do want to make really, really clear is that if anybody ever comes along and tells you there's a right way or a wrong way to create a team, they're mistaken. There is no right or wrong way to do that. It's whatever works for you. So I've seen teams that are as small as 2 people, the mom and the dad. That's it. That's the only people they needed on their team. And I've seen other teams like my son's that are very large and they have 9, 10 people. He's almost at 12 on his team. I've seen teams that go so far as to reach out to their whole entire church. It doesn't matter how you make the team. What matters is that it works for you and that there's some kind of agreement involved, because right now, for this to be legally recognized by our courts, they want to see that team agreement. And all you have to do for that is get it notarized. And that's a lot cheaper than going through a guardianship in the court system and all of those things. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I need your phone number.
Okay, I'll give it to you. I will happily give it to you. I think that's about it. I'm going to pass out these resources. This is where I got a lot of the information we talked about in the town hall meeting today. If you'll look down here, there's a bunch of them for supported decision-making. And this will be what shows up online as well. So these are just a list of those digital resources for everybody to go home and do some research on. James, what did I miss? I know I missed some. Oh, the wings. Did I talk about wings? Can you share about wings a little bit?
Yeah. You want me to stand here or go?
Please. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody. So my name is James Tucker. I work at ADAP. That's the Alabama Disabilities Advocacy Program. And I'll say a quick word about wings, which Kim asked me to say a word about. But before I do that, I just want to pause and say how much credit Kim and her family deserve for getting the Colby Act passed in the state. It really is meaningful. It puts Alabama, you said 32 states are doing it, but don't be modest. Alabama's like in the top half of states to get this done. And Kim got it done with the help of some friendly legislators. And that's why we're able to talk about these things today. And to come back to your question, she's living it and doing it. In addition, the form is written into the new state statute. So the form is right there, and Kim and I can work with anybody to get you a readily usable, easily accessible form. But the form is just that. It's a form. The form isn't the living, breathing support team for the individual. So I've really had the pleasure of working with Colby and Kim for a number of years now. And I'm really glad that we're able to kind of talk about that now, Tim, since the law is in effect as of August 1, this very month. So you also asked me to talk about wings. Kim is referring to an effort of the state Supreme Court in Alabama that supports implementation of alternatives to guardianship, like the Colby Act, like supported decision-making. So literally last month, I was at a reception at the state bar meeting down on the coast, and I got to talk to the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. And I told him how much we all appreciate his support for this effort. And I can't tell you how much it means for the state to be able to move forward, you know, with the governor, with the legislature, with the courts, to be able to have the support of people like the governor and the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. So they're on board, they support us, and several people in this room are involved, but that's kind of what we're talking about. We have the support of a lot of people. They're not doing this as a favor. They're not begrudging it. They support it. They want to see it grow, and they want to see it continue. So thanks, Kim, for the chance to say a word, but glad we've gotten there.
Get it. Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted him to give you the big picture, because this is so much bigger than just us here in this room or just us here in this state. This is a national that is already become an international initiative. This is what we see needs to happen for people with disabilities to have a voice. And the reason we did this and the reason I stuck with it is because I could see when my son would speak to experts in the room, whatever that room was, whether it was a doctor's office, whether it was an IEP meeting, whether it was a person-centered plan, whatever room we were in, when my son would speak, the habit or the general default would be to look past him and look to me or my husband and speak through him to us about him, even though he was sitting right there. And that just never sat well with me. And I never could get past it, because I would always circle back around and not only not understand, why are you not speaking to Colby? He's right here. But also, do you see that he has his own thoughts and opinions on this? Can you hear what he's saying? And sometimes, even if they did, his thoughts or his opinions would get overruled, because that's not the way the system works. I heard that more than once. And so it became vital for me to ensure that when we pass, when Steve and I, because we're not going to live forever as much as we would like to, that there was a mechanism in place for Colby's voice to be heard when he's sitting in those circumstances among a team of experts in a room, and that there was a way to make sure his voice was heard and his wants and needs and wishes were at least listened to and somehow respected. So that's what this is all about in real life. All right. Questions, comments? I think we're good. If you have anything you want to look at after the meeting, we've got plenty more resources up here. I've got a guide to creating natural supports. I've got a guide to creating a supported decision-making team. And this is a wonderful little card right here. This is all of the different services that you can call, the 1-800 numbers for ADMH. And it depends on what you're looking for, but we've got advocacy, autism, developmental disability, mental illness, peer support, substance abuse, and some nice QR codes on the back. So please take these home, post them online, pass them out to your friends. But this is your go-to when you have questions or concerns and you're looking for that kind of support that you know is out there, but it's just kind of hard to find sometimes. All right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Someone who's watching.
Hang on. Let me.
You can read it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look what this technology does, y'all. We have a question on a phone in a text. I am on the Facebook Live, but I'm having difficulty trying to comment. My question is, who makes up the process to the CWP waiver? We have been on the waiver now for almost a year with only using remote support services because of the process being cumbersome. Can you ask this question and get it answered? That might be, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but that might be a good question while we have somebody here from ADMH to speak to. I'm assuming the question would be, what else can we get out of CWP other than remote supports? Is that a good way to phrase it?
They probably need to speak with Byron or someone, Byron White.
Yes, you're right. So we have the person in charge of the CWP waiver is Byron White. And as far as putting that process together, I'm assuming what she means is who decides on what services. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, we'd also be happy at ADAP. We're happy to talk to any family and individual about specific circumstances also.
Yes, and ADAP is very knowledgeable about that topic. Feel free to reach out to ADAP as well. Help me rephrase the question, make sure I'm getting it right.
I think part of the question.
Okay. It seems to me she's trying to understand the process of the CWP and how it is put together, how the services are provided and decided upon. Technology is awesome.
No, who decides on the process? We've had hours of meetings, still no services.
Okay, the process of the services getting provided, right? Okay, first and foremost, it is a process. It does not happen overnight as much as we would like for it to. But second of all, I would reach out to Byron, I would reach out to ADAP, and I would reach out to your support coordinator. There's a support coordinator involved. I don't know who it is. She would know, but that is your go-to person for those kind of issues. The support coordinator, along with Byron, along with ADAP, should be able to get it done. It's sometimes a matter of understanding what the needs actually are and how they can fit in that person-centered plan. I'm happy to help with however I can as the family outreach coordinator for ARC of Alabama. I know enough to get by. I probably don't know as much as ADAP or your support coordinator or Byron, but I'm happy to help, even if it's just to be a sounding board as another parent in the room. So any of those will work. I know that it's I've seen people take months trying to get things solidified and nailed down in that plan, in that process. So it's not an overnight thing. Just be patient. It will come. Any more questions? We're good? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming and spending time with us. Feel free to come see me after, and I'll put all of these resources online for everybody participating that way. Oh, I was hoping I got my name.
Yes, ma'am.
For coming to this meeting is because I have both an adult son, 2 adult grandsons. And my oldest is 50 plus, so that lets you know there was times services was not as available. My one of my grandsons, he's 22 and he lives with autism. The other one also, I think he's ADHD. I am striving to find the availability of services for them and how to connect them. We started out with Easter seal, but it seems like there are limitations. And when you don't know what services are available, who to address, who to connect to, and you being referred to other locations, it makes it very difficult because we live here in Montgomery, not Birmingham, not Huntsville. And like you are saying, we're not going to be here always. And I don't want to leave here not helping to connect them with services that they can live independently, not being dependent, but at least have a sense of connection in community, because with all 3 of them, they tend to isolate out, not because they choose to, but because of their social ability. And I can just go so far. So I'm striving to tap into the experts, and it did not just start happening, but the older they are and the older I am, I don't want to leave them without having did the best that I could and engaging them. So that's where I'm at with that. So I don't know whether you have the answers or not. I just was going through and striving to find, where do I go? Not striving to look to the behind, because yesterday is gone. Right now I'm dealing with what's here now.
I hear you. I've got several different answers for that question, but there are resources out there. The issue is trying to get connected to them. And then once you're connected to them, the issue becomes staying connected with them. And so I would love to talk to you after the meeting. Did you get one of the cards that we passed out that had the different colors and numbers on it from ADMH? That's a good place to start. There's a lot of factors involved with what you just mentioned, where you live, what the transportation looks like, what the support needs are, what the individualized interests are, things like that, that all kind of go into that same soup that we want to cook at just the right temperature. So come and talk to me after the meeting and I'll give you everything I can and we'll go from there.
Are your sons and grandsons, are they on any waiver?
No.
And
I don't even know anything about it. So this one's going to be on the chat, but it's been given limited information about it.
Okay.
Even when it's fine.
Right. My suggestion is, I see you have it highlighted there on your card, just call into the 800 number for autism. And they will get your information, the disabilities, what's affected them, and then they'll find you a support coordinator to help you get your services here in Montgomery. Unfortunately, you're not on the boat by yourself. You know, autism is a new service that's been around for a long time, but you know, now that, especially after COVID, people are realizing that they're not getting serviced. So there's few and far between services out there unless they're in schools. And so that's a goal of that Arc of Alabama too. We're going to hopefully in the next couple of years alleviate that. But my suggestion to start is to go through that, the Alabama Department of Mental Health at the autism services, and get you connected to somebody that can help you and get down the right road. Thank you. That's a great question. Thank you. Any more questions? James, go ahead.
Oh, he's got it.
I would say one thing just to supplement, and that is, Kim, you pointed to, when you were talking about the Colored Community Waiver Program flyer, you talked about the last bullet. Individuals with ID 22 and older who have a minimum of one substantial functional limitation. What this waiver does is allow, for the first time in our state, for waiver programs that you can obtain from the Department of Mental Health to provide services to a person who may not technically qualify as a person with an ID, but who is a person with autism. That is the purpose of that last bullet. So it's possible that what you're describing, your sons and grandsons might be eligible for the community waiver program, which didn't even exist until 2 years ago. So that's why we're all trying to brainstorm here to think about how we can help you take a next step. So I just wanted to say that that is explicitly the reason that that qualifier is there. It's a good thing. It's new. Let's take advantage of it. So just wanted to share that thought.
Any other questions? Once again, thank y'all for coming. Thank you, Zena, for arranging for us to be here at the regional office. Thanks for all you that come out, and Melissa and James, and spoke and sharing your knowledge on self-direction as well. Thank you, Clifton, for filling in and doing a great job of getting us troubleshooting there and getting us going. So thank y'all very much. You know, it's going on 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. You know how Montgomery traffic is. You're going to be hitting schools, traffic too, so be careful. The fast food lines are going to be long, so if you want to get a drink and a Coke and a snack, grab it on the way and you don't have to stop. Thank y'all for coming, and feel free to stay after and ask questions. Have a great day and a great weekend.